it was like quite a brilliant situation. And I went and got some credit cards the following week. And that's how I started buying my first 2 deals, using those credit cards as deposit money. So I now am a strong advocate of credit cards used in the right way. And they have to be used in the right way. If we are a day late on the repayment, so David's in a situation now where he's got to pay that card off within 56 or 59 days. If he pays it on day 60, that would be a stupid move, because when they can give you balances, if you're late, they can also take those away. If you've got inactivity or late payments, you will find that all of that work you did in increasing your limits and lowering your APRs may revert to the original position or worse. Okay, so they're very tight, and you can't blame them on this, because a lot of people will be money laundering, flouting the industry and doing it wrong. So you can't blame them for being tight on you as a consumer. All we need to know is how to handle that. Okay? Just another point as well, I'll reiterate something that we quickly mentioned yesterday. Credit cards play such a major part for me that when a bill comes in related to any of my property business, I have a credit card account that will pay that bill. But that credit card account only pays for the expenses to that particular business and not the others. So it's a personal and private card, not a business card, not a company credit card. It's a personal and private card that pays the business expense, and then the business pays that card off subsequently. I'm buying myself time, aren't I? It's very important in business to create cash flow for yourself and extend, okay, 0% periods. Not have to pay at source until you've realized money on the gain of the transfer of sale of whatever the asset is. We spoke about this yesterday, didn't we? Can we actually sell it before we have to pay for buying it? And the more we can extend this and lift our score, the better. And credit cards are ideal for that. The biggest benefit for me in my office is the recording. Okay, now, if we look at the management side, we must develop an efficient management system. The cards in themselves put efficiency into your business, because at the end of every month, we've got a statement showing all of our expenditure, every little point, haven't we? Okay, they do that for us. So it's brilliant. We can load that in to claim our VAT back if we're VAT registered on our VAT quarters, and that then goes towards forming our accounts. That's the way we run business in my businesses. So this weekend, okay, I went to the Ivy Club again last night with the team. Now, was there an expensive bill at the end? Yes. But is that tax deductible against my speaking business? Yes. Did I keep a receipt for that? Yes. So when I go back home, okay, tomorrow evening, the first thing I'll do is go into the office. Now, the office is at my home. It's the other end of my holding. Okay, it's a building we've converted the other end of the holding. Now, I don't need a town centre location for my businesses, so I'm frugal. Everything's run tight. Okay, and I've got 2 members of staff there that work full-time in that office. I will put the receipts on a spike there, either late tomorrow night or first thing Monday morning. So the receipts build up in date order. All receipts, that is, from everything that I do, not just this 3 days when I'm going out in my property business on day to day. It's very similar. The girls in the office know by looking at the credit number at the end, those last 4 digits on that receipt, what expense, or which business that expense is related to. Is that making sense? So credit cards track everything for me as well. They do a lot of the accountability. When you've got more than one business running, again, you want to be making sure, as long as you've got a dedicated card for the expenses to that particular business, it streamlines everything for you very, very well. The other major point of consideration is your repayment time. If you put a debt on a credit card to buy an asset, that has to be cleared, doesn't it? That card has to be cleared, because it's money we owe. Now, we must clear it by that due date, mustn't we? So if you've only got a handful of cards, 2, 3, 5, half a dozen, you might want to do it this way. When you take the debt out on your card, you put a date forward in your diary when that payment is due to be cleared on that account. But make sure you've got 5 days of grace there. So if the payment due date is 56 days from today, from when you've paid, by day 50 you put a date in as a reminder, okay, that now has to be cleared, so that it becomes cleared funds in the account. Remember what we said yesterday? Allow up to 5 working days for funds to clear. They normally clear quicker, but we're hedging on the safe side here. Okay. Any questions now just on that section?
It is no % balance transfer card. Is that just a normal credit card, or is it a special type?
Okay, the question is from Sebastian. A 0% balance transfer card, is that a normal card or a special card? It's not that special. They're pretty normally available, but they are different to the normal, what we term the normal 0 to 56 or 0 to 59 days. So they will hold debt for you for a period of time. They go for the capital side. So we'll actually determine that when we do strategy setting with you, which will be led by Jan, which will be done during the lunch break today. We're going to start doing that today. Okay, so we'll start giving you a handle on your own finances and your own strategy going forward. And Jan will explain that a little bit later on. So coming back to what does wash its face mean? Well, let's have a look at some examples. I'm going to take you through, don't bother copying these down first of all, a couple of lead-ins to this, because the same principle can happen anywhere in Europe or the world. This is Southern Ireland. What I need to get is a rent figure, which I've determined from this list here. There's a range of rent. Okay, the next thing I need to do is endorse that with another letting agent. I need to know what the market is achieving in rent. So here's a range of figures here. I then want a purchase price, and this is in euros. In this particular deal here, 218,000 euro. There's one in Clondalkin, south of Dublin. Another one here, 223. These properties don't need work. Okay, I've chosen ones there which we could buy and rent out. Another one here, 225. So there's a range. This is a cheaper price point end of Dublin. So again, the same as we would do in UK, we've gone to an area where we're expecting perhaps a slightly better return. And here's another one here to endorse it further again, 234. Now let's just put a cash flow in place. Now I want you to copy this down. And this is interesting. This is an Irish market, and then we're going to compare and stick with UK. But it is nice just to have this as a little comparable here to start off, because the template that we use in whichever country we are and whichever area of that country is the same. It's just that the percentages change. Okay, now first consideration is rental income, and I had my comparables for that there. The funding cost of the money comes next. We've got 225,000 euros on average on those prices. So we've taken 80% loan to value of that, which is the mortgage we can get in Ireland, which is a bit different to here. But we take the fact on the market from time to time. 80% of 225 gives us 180. The interest rate on that is only 3%. Interesting, isn't it? There at the moment. So 3% on that 180 divided by 12 is £450 worth of interest per calendar month. The management fee is 10% of the rent figure, so that's 120 euro. Other costs, which is monthly operating expenses, is an assumed 10%. And in a minute, I'll give you a list of what that covers, what other cost estimate covers. Now, I tend to call that MOE, M-O-E, monthly operating expenses. You might want to put a side note, just as a reminder there, 10% of rent, monthly operating expenses. Now, we haven't included the deposit here yet. This is just the loan against the deal, and we want to determine, does it come out plus or minus? Well, actually, the cash flow on this one is 460 euros per calendar month, which is fairly good, isn't it? Okay, but then there's quite a lump of deposit to go in there. We've got the difference between 180 and 225, which is 45,000 euros, has got to come from somewhere. But actually, this deal will work. Okay, this one is going to stay in the melting pot and go to the next stage to see whether it passes the capital test, okay, which we'll be doing on deals in just a moment. So I'm only showing you this example not as because I want you to follow me into Ireland, but just because I want you to be aware that what I'm teaching you now works in every country. You've just got to find the actual benchmarks of loan to value and interest rate for that particular country. Okay, and then we can go and find rent levels, we can go and find purchase price, and we can run the basic cash flow calculation. Always 10% of rent is assumed for letting and management, 10% is assumed for MO. Now, I want you to put the heading MO, monthly operating expenses, and it's related to where it says other cost estimate here, one and the same. Monthly operating expenses include the following. Okay, now we're going to come back to UK in a moment and really endorse this. They include the building's insurance, that's your legal responsibility as a landlord or landlady. Okay, the building's insurance, the repairs and maintenance, and the certification. And we're going to break that down into 3 areas on a rental. Certification. So we've got the building's insurance, repairs and maintenance, and the certification. Under certification, we've got the landlord's gas safety certificate. Okay, the landlord's gas safety certificate. If there's gas supplied to the property, either mains or portable, that has to have a certificate. The second one is electrical safety certificate. Now we'll look at the tight rules on this in the buy-to-let section tomorrow. And the third one is the EPC, the Energy Performance Certificate. There's a cost to all these. Okay, the Energy Performance Certificate. Legal requirement in UK. Must have one if you're renting a property out. And you get one easily by just employing the services of a domestic energy assessor to assess the energy efficiency of your property. Okay, another little potential business for you. Become a DEA. Some of our students have, or customers have, and they've set up a business like that. So you can have a look at it. You have yourself, have you? Okay, is it very lucrative?
No.
No, okay. No, I don't think so either, but if you're strapped for cash, it's...
No, it was supposed to be a leading, but
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's hard work for not huge reward, is it?
Yeah.
But you are self-employed.
Yeah.
So for some people, I mean...
It's more for convenience now, without getting anybody in to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. So Dave's qualified himself. It's not that difficult, is it, Dave?
No, 3-day course.
Yeah.
About 6 weeks.
And you've got to spend a bit of money, haven't you? Like any training. How much did that cost you?
It's about £2 grand. But
Two.
we've got 50% funding through the business.
Yeah,
So,
fine. So for £2 grand, Dave's got trained up to be a DEA. He's got a title after his name now. Doesn't really mean a lot though, does it? Okay, but it is a little safety net business there. So, you know, keep your eyes open, but that's what you need to get EPC. So could you do a deal with Dave to do cheap certificates for you? Yeah. No, he says, no, you're going to pay full price.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Win-win, okay, but think about this because there are expertise around that we can plug into, and if you've got that facility, you're qualified, brilliant. If I was investing near his area, I'd have a little coffee and a chat with him, yeah? So come back to the situation here. That assumes 10% of rent. Why does it stay pretty standard around UK with that? Well, because where labour's very expensive here, materials are about the same price as anywhere else in UK, but pro rata property's more expensive. So on a percentage basis of the rent figure, again, which is higher, it assumes a fair figure of 10% of rent. If we go up north, labour's cheap, property prices lower, rents are lower. 10% of that assumes a fair figure. So as a first back of the fag packet calculation, if you like, if that's the right expression, it does give us a good guide as to whether we're going to have a cash flow deal or not. Then we put the true figures into that area afterwards. Okay, Sebastian? There we are.
So the insurance is always paid by the landlord, never by the tenant.
Oh, that's interesting. Interest is always paid by the vendor, not by the tenant. You mean the landlord?
Insurance.
Interest?
Insurance.
Oh, insurance, sorry. Insurance is always paid by the landlord or tenant. What do you think? Buildings insurance? By the landlord. What about contents insurance? No. It depends, okay? Hold that up nice and tight there, Sebastian. With the contents insurance, are you supplying a furnished let? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, well then if you are, who's responsible for the insurance?
Landlord.
For the contents? Landlord, okay? So that's, it depends, Arthur, actually. If your let is unfurnished, guess what? Who pays for the contents insurance? The tenant. Okay? Who pays, I'll ask you a question, Sebastian, while you've got the microphone. Who pays, who pays for the council tax and utilities?
Tenant.
Tenant. But does that always have to be the case?
No.
No. Okay, so it depends. It could be lumped onto the rent. Who pays for the council tax in a student let, HMO? Landlord or tenant? Okay, 2 correct answers, the rest were wrong. Okay, all the rest of you were wrong. It's exempt. So as long as we qualify for it, we don't have to pay it. So it's one of the advantages to that little strategy. So, you know, learn the rules to the game. Thank you, Sebastian, for the question. Now, let's go on here to London, an area that we know a little bit better than Clondalkin in Ireland. Again, the principle is the same, but I'm going to use 75% loan to value and 6% interest rate, okay? And I'm going to compare through UK every area like for like with that equation. You'll be doing some working figures in the room on this yourselves in a minute, so listen carefully, because if you don't listen, you ain't going to be doing the test very well in a minute, because I'm going to assume a real situation for you and you'll have to work it out, okay? Let's have a look at this. This is a studio flat here. It's in Chelsea Village, just around the corner. I've got some sales particulars on it. It was the cheapest end I could find of the rent figures, $340 per week. They were ranging up a lot higher than this, some of them, so that's the best I could find as far as affordability to the tenant. There's another one here at 300, okay, just around the corner again, Southwest 6. The average of those is 320 per week. Okay, so I'm going to set my low-end rent figure at that. I then went to buy a property, and what's on offer today is this. It's flat, again doesn't need work. It's on the cheaper end of the scale again that I could find. It's in Flarms, Fulham then, Southwest 6 again, 195. I need a second endorsement on that, and there it is again in Fulham, Southwest 6. The important thing, the price is ready to go. I've got my rent figure, I've got my price. Can I now work out a cash flow? Yeah. Yes or no? Yeah, go on then. No, I'm only joking. You don't need to do it yet. I'll just show you a couple more examples, but listen carefully, because in about the third or fourth one, I'm going to ask you to do it, okay, and see whether you come up with the right figure, because there's nothing better than doing it yourself to learn. So let's bring in the figures here on this particular example. Copy this down as a guide to you, because this time now we're in UK, and we've got 75% loan to value, we've got 6% interest rate. The rent comes in at 320 per week. 320 times 52 divided by 12 is a monthly rent figure, which is on the conservative side for here, 1,386. The cost, okay, the funding cost, 75% of 195 is 146,250. And there's a little reminder here, the star there, that is 75% of purchase.
It's not K, by the way, is it?
Okay, sorry?
It's okay, but then that'd be 146 million, right?
Yeah, oh sorry, yeah, knock off the K. Well spotted. No, and I can't use the excuse of mild dyslexia for that one. That's just an error on my part. So it's £146,250. That is £731 per calendar month, okay? The management fee is 10% of rent, that's 138. Mo, other costs, 138. We take away the mortgage interest, the management fee, and Mo, and we get a surplus. We always want to see in UK a figure here of at least 80. If it's plus 80 on this monthly cash flow, it stays in the pot. If it's minus 80, we don't go any further. And I'll show you why as we unfold these deals a little bit greater. Okay, £80 per calendar month, cash positive, it has to be. Has this one passed the test? Yeah. Yes, because it's more than 80. Okay, so put a side note there that in today's interest rates, we want to see the minimum at 80. Now that's pretty straightforward stuff, isn't it? She looks like she's washing her face. But how much deposit do I have to put in to get £379 of cash flow? Well, the difference between the purchase price at 195 and the loan at 146,250. So the first calculation that I want you to do is take away 146,250 from 195 and tell me what the deposit is. Okay, and I want you to write that down. If you just, everybody just calculate that first to check that Ijaz is right. I've got a sneaking suspicion that he is. Okay, yeah, take away the loan from the price. The price is 195, remember? We looked on the last slides there. And the loan, we've worked out 75% of that. Okay, so what is the deposit? 48,000, you all agreed? 48,750. So just make a side note under this. For 48,750 deposit, I'm getting a cash flow return of 379. Now, the other point of consideration is, do we actually put a cost, an interest cost against the deposit? Yeah. Yes, we should, and we're going to deal with that later on. So bear that in mind. This is why we're looking at this factor through investors' eyes. For that deposit, I've got X, Y, Z return. Come back to the contents of the cash flow itself as well. We've got in there a figure for letting and management at 10%. What if you rented this out and managed it yourself?
You leave it in.
You leave it in, Sebastian, correct. Because is your time worth money?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So again, leave it in whatever as a cost against the deal. Could you pay yourself that as a business and make that a tax-deductible element in your buy-to-let accounts? Yes. The answer is yes, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow. So leave it in, whatever happens. Let's move on here to another... Yep, go on.
I need to catch you up. Sorry.
Hang on. Microphone, please. Okay, if you can grab that one. We'll get used to using this in a minute.
Yes, sorry, I just
Yeah.
want to catch up with you.
Yeah.
I don't picture that I'm not flowing as yet. Please, can you just run over it again?
Yes, certainly. And I'll do a couple of more examples as well. So if you're not sure, ask. And if you want us to sit down with you in the break, we will. And we'll go through it on a one-on-one. So I'll do it again, and I'll see if it becomes clear. Basically, what we've brought in here, remember this is not capital, this is cash flow. We're not dealing with refurbs, we're not dealing with legals, we'll deal with that in a minute. We're looking at the month-by-month cash flow potential coming from a deal. So in order to do that, what we need to do is find the rent figure. That's what's going to come in every month into our account. Then we need some minuses, because there's costs to running this property. The first minus is the mortgage interest. So, and that monthly on this one is 731. I'll show you the calculation for working that out in a minute. Okay? Then we've got an assumed 10% of letting and management, because we've got to get it let and manage. Because like you said yesterday, we don't want to be phoned up for that leaky tap washer, do we? Okay, so we're assuming a figure there. Even if we are, we're paying ourselves. Yeah, 10%. So Mo money then, Mo is the other costs, the other expenses, the other monthly operating expenses. And we've got some legal obligations here as a landlord. We've got the actual property insurance, okay, to pay for. We've got the repairs and maintenance, ongoing repairs and maintenance on the building to pay for. And we've got the certification of that building. So that assumes 10%. So all we've done here is taken away those three from the rent. And we've assumed then a cash flow plus or minus. This one is plus 379. It needs to be 80. Okay, yeah, I can see the lights coming on. Perfect.
How are we dealing with letting costs? Because if I employ a letting agency...
Are we dealing with letting costs? Yeah. It's in there. 10%. Okay? No, it's in the letting and management. So letting and management costs are 10% in this equation. If you, in the real world, get it for 7% or you get it for 15% in that particular area, when you tighten up, we rerun the figures at that benchmark when you know. But for comparing areas across the UK, what we're doing on the first step here, Sebastian, we're going 10%, always. Again, then we'll tighten it up after. So we'll do it step-by-step process, because we don't want to be wasting time doing finite figures and then finding the deal's way off track anyway. We'll do the first basic calculation. This is the easy one. If it doesn't come near the benchmark, don't waste any more time on it. Yeah, and a lot of deals won't work. Okay? So let's move on. Oh, can we run all the way over there? Jan's going to get really fit doing this.
Don't go to the gym.
And a little secret for you, Jan is actually running the marathon in London this year as well.
This is much training.
Ah.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks. Just
Yeah.
not clear with the 379 and the 388.
The 379, that's the net result of taking away 731, 138, 138 from the rent. So if you assume here, Adamu, you've got a property that we've bought and we've set up, what we're projecting is before we buy it, what would be the cash per month that we'd have from that property if we rented it out? In order to achieve that, we've got to pay, the biggest liability to us always is the mortgage interest. So the rent has to cover that, it has to cover the letting and management, and it has to cover then the monthly operating expenses. And then anything we've got left could be our profit, subject to the cost of any other finance, which includes the deposit. So we haven't factored the cost to the deposit yet. Yeah?
We're talking about another figure, which is 379.
The 80?
Yeah, 387.
Okay. Just the £80. Is that the figure you're talking about when I said 80 is the benchmark?
I was a bit confused.
Okay. There's not a 380. That's the figures on the deal. And then what we've got is an £80, which is the minimum we want to see as positive cash flow on a deal. Okay? I'll do a couple more examples for you now, and then you'll start getting a handle on this. I know it's new to one or two of you, but it's the way we've got to be sure and safe on property deals. Okay? So let's have a look at another end of the country first. You might want to copy this one down as well, Adam, and then once you have a look at it afterwards, if you need any help in the lunch break, just come and tap us on the shoulder and we'll go through it with you on a one-on-one again until it comes clear. You must get a handle on this first. Bear with me, Sebastian. We'll look at some more examples first, okay? Now then, Newcastle. This one is Arthur's Hill. Now this will be quite a contrast to London. It's a cheap end of the market, about as cheap as you can get. You know, we can buy a little flat there for 35,000. You know, a little bit different to London, isn't it? Where in London you're looking at, you know, part of a property for this. You won't get much for 35, would you? However, don't bother copying all the text down. That's just the details, the sales particulars. The price we're interested in here for today. Do we need a rent figure? Yes. Yes, we absolutely do. Is it going to be 1,300 odd up there? No. What do you think the rent figure is likely to be? 400? 200. Actually, this man wins as being closer because I had a look at it and it's 280. It's not a lot of rent, is it? But it was 280 to 340. So I've taken the low end. This is social security rental. Okay, it's a living allowance here, LHA rate, and basically it's a lot less than London. So it's a small dilly. Can it work though? We've got two figures. Can we now run a cash flow? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, and this will reflect a good guide into that market, total other end of the business. So here it is. If you want to just copy this down, what a contrast really, and what does it tell us? Well, let's have a look. The rent comes in at 280. The purchase price is 35. Now, Arthur's Hill is not in the centre of Newcastle. It's a satellite area to the town. And it ticks all those boxes from yesterday afternoon on target location criteria. So actually, it is potentially a deal that might work very nicely for us. Let's have a look at the figures in more detail then. There's a loan, 26,250. And again, drop off the K. That was because I put the exact figures in. The 132 is the interest on that. The management fee is 10% of rent, that's 28. The MO, the other cost is 28. What was the benchmark we had to pass? Plus 80. Is she passing it, this deal? Yeah, she's plus 92, so she stays in the pot. That's again directly compared to the London on LTV and interest rate. Okay, now, this is where it starts getting interesting for me as an investor when I start comparing this and the outcome of this, which has got less cash flow against the London deal. How much deposit have I put in this one? I want you to take away the loan from the price. Again, the loan is 26,250 and the price is 35. 8,750 is correct in my head. Are we all happy with that? Okay, so put down deposit equals 8,750. Can anybody see where we're going with this? For 8,750, I get what cash flow? 92. Let's compare that with the London deal, the bigger, posher, higher priced London one with this little grunter. This is a little grunter, isn't it, as I call it? Okay, cheap, cheerful. Okay, this little grunter has cost me less deposit. What I want you to do now is divide the deposit of the grunter into the deposit of the London deal to see how many grunters I could buy with my same London deposit money. Okay, if you can do that for me, divide the 8,750 into the 48, what was it? The 48,750. 5.5 properties, says David. We're going to round that because we don't want to buy half a property because I don't like shared ownership. 5.57. So we call it 5. Be hard on ourselves. Okay, so for the same deposit money as a London deal, we could buy 5 little cheapies in the satellite area to Newcastle. Interesting. Which would be the best move? Why do we say 5 cheapies then? Let's have a look at the maths on it first. We've got 5 times the 92, correct, Mary, okay? 5 times 92 is more than the cash flow we had on the London deal, isn't it? That's point 1. Also, if one of those properties goes empty, in Newcastle, have I still got 4 put in cash in my pocket? If the London one goes empty, what happens? Stuffed. I got no rent coming in, have I? So on sensitivity analysis, which is less risk? Up north or London? Up north, okay. What about capital then? We're going to come to capital in a minute, as they say in Wales. But if we come to capital, would I rather, for capital growth and safety, own the 5 cheapies going up in value or the one London one? Excuse me? Think about it. Would I rather own 5 cheapies going up in value or the one London one? 5 cheapies, thank you. Okay? It's the 5 cheapies because there's less risk with that. There's more surety. And part of the reason why I say that is because of, if we pick up from something that we looked at yesterday in the training, we looked at housing markets in the morning, didn't we? And we said to ourselves, okay, which is safer in a down market, to own posh ones or grunters? Grunters, because they drop less. So I'm happier with a grunter because I'm hedging myself against a future market and I'm more likely to take a benefit collectively on a rise. It's a safer, more solid type of approach. Okay, and I'll prove it to you time and time again. I'll come back just a second. Let's have a look at one more example first because we're going to get you working on these, and the best way to generate questions from it is for you to actually try it and see where you go wrong, yeah? And then we'll help you. So let's have a look at Watford. Now sometimes it doesn't work, and this will happen a lot, and here's an example of where maybe that's the case. Amateurs would follow this, people who are not trained properly. There's a property that's bringing in 650 rent, worst case, but it actually costs 160,000. Do people buy properties like this because they like them? Yes, all day long. They don't know what they're doing. And basically what's happening here is the loan is costing us interest at 596. The management fee is 10%. The mo money is 10%. If you buy this property, and this is set as 75% loan to value, 6% interest, exactly like the others, before you've got any cost on deposit, you're going to have to find £76 a month to go into it. It's not very good, is it? We say in Wales to something like this, a chyfi. Don't want it. Leave that to the amateurs, you know. A well-trained investor would walk by this very quickly. So you will, when you start calculating these deals, see them going into a minus fairly often, we'd say. So Jan, if we got that example ready, property 1, we'll run that one in just a minute, okay? There's a real deal, and you're going to run the figures on this. There will be a prize for the table that gets out the first with the correct answer. Okay, so you're in competition with each other here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 tables. So you've all got a fair chance here. We're not a huge group this time. So Sebastian, quickly.
I just have a question.
Okay, while you're just getting that ready, I'm just going to put another example up here for you. This is Takes Avenue. This is one of mine in Belfast, and these are actual facts and figures on this one. And you can see why I quite like the area. Okay, I'll just come back to you in a second, Sebastian. We've got £95 per week, which is $411 per calendar month. We've got the funding cost on the loan here coming in at $37,500. That's $188. We've got the management fee at $41, and we've got the mo money at $41. This property is giving me cash flow at £141 per calendar month. Do you quite like that? Okay, and it's in an area which is a safe area of Belfast, and it's up and coming. So do keep your eyes open. We can go round the different parts of UK. Remember that Northern Ireland, it is under UK law as far as tax and as far as finance. It's exactly the same. People tend to forget that. It's the south that's different. The south is obviously euros and a different set of rules there for investing. So I am fairly happy with that, especially when I show you later on the grants that I get on these buildings, typically for that renovation grant from the Housing Executive to help the capital side out as well. So high cash, high capital return also. So again, keep your eyes open. We've got mentors who are specialists in this particular field here of investing in Northern Ireland. I'm going to show you just one more, and then we'll stop on that. Then I'll take your question, Sebastian, and then we're going to actually run a cash flow. Okay? So again, it's fairly simple approach here. We go for price and rent. Okay, this, as a reminder, was 75% interest rate, LTV, 6% interest. Let's go on to Ibrox, Scotland. Why would you want to buy in Scotland? Another one of mine. This is a real example. It's Elizabeth Street. Why do I like buying there? Well, it's a safe area. It's even safer than Belfast. And it's a very underused area. There's a lot of potential, really, for investors. And for me, these red sandstone properties, they're solid. Very little subsidence there. And we're in a regeneration zone on the south side of Glasgow here. If anybody plays football, you'll recognise the area, Ibrox. There's a big stadium just around the corner. Now, a lot of ownership here, homeowners as well, which is good. I feel safer in that area. Fixed price here is $39,500. I paid $40 for it. Why? Well, because I ran the cash flow, and this is what it looks like. This is the ingoing cash flow. Okay, the rental income on this one wasn't massive, but $375, worst case. The funding costs of the money, 75% of 40 is 30,000, so there's 10,000 deposit gone into this deal. That's 150 on the interest at 30,000 at 6%. The management fee is 10% of the rent. More money, 10% of the rent. Monthly cash flow plus 149 is past the 80 benchmark fly-in. It's 149. Now I'm just going to ask you a question here. We obviously realise about the deposit element, don't we? Okay, we've got that one nailed. And we've said smaller is better than big value. Let's come back to the cash flow side of things and compare now your freedom figure, your basic calculation figure from yesterday. You all wrote a figure down of your basic needs per calendar month, didn't you? Yes. Okay, as we start strategy setting with Jan and the team, one of the thoughts we may have is, if we do go on a buy-to-let strategy, you may do a whole or part of your portfolio like this. You want to know how you can replace your basic needs figure quickly to get financial independence, yes or no? Yeah, that's it. Okay? All we have to do is take the cash flow and divide it into the freedom figure. Now, I'm going to be very, very hard on myself. Although we can get deals at cash flow in the 150s, I'm going to assume an average cash flow on these cheaper end deals of 100 a month. It's an easy calculation for you. And what I want you to do now, first of all, is divide your freedom figure from yesterday, or if you can remember it, by 100. And see how many times 100 divides into it. And somebody can just let me know and I'll show you an example. 25 times. What that means is that you need 25 properties producing at least £100 per calendar month cash flow to replace your basic needs. So by when do you want to buy 25?
Before the end of the year.
By the end of the year?
Before.
Before. That's pretty conservative. Before the end of this year.
Yeah.
So we got a whole year to buy 25. Easy. Okay? So we do it in 6 months. Let's do it in 6 months. Okay? Happier with that? So let's do that in 6 months, and you'll never have to work again. Like the sound of that? It says, that's a nice feeling, isn't it? Okay, so you now own some mortgages, you're in a little bit of debt with your capital, you're buying equity because you're buying under value, but look at this cash flow coming off. Does that make you feel good? Yeah, it should, because that's exactly how I run part of my business. And that's part of strategy setting. You've got to put benchmarks, you've got to put numbers of property with a strategy and a timeline to it. And that's really what we're starting to think here as far as what strategy shall I do, you know, by when do I want that in place? And for a lot of you, you want to imagine giving those 2 fingers to the boss in your mind, don't you? Because perhaps you don't like, you know, this isn't the same for everybody obviously, but perhaps you don't like being in that position of the job. And perhaps you're saying to yourself, I can't wait for that day when I've got that choice. You know, I can see by your actions that's the case for you. Can't wait for that moment. That's your driver. Okay, that's a good driver for people. You may want to actually have another goal or aspiration that you want to realize. Your driver has to be big. Okay, but behind that then, once you've set that, there are various ways we can help you towards achieving that. And I'm just giving you a case example here of how straightforward it actually is with a little bit of guidance. Okay, you can get there fairly quickly and quicker than you'd think. And that's really how I got to in the position I was in very quickly on financial independence, and then grew the first million from there.